In this video I want to talk about the best and worst banks in Brazil, in my opinion, and also how foreigners can set up a bank account here in Brazil and make transfers. So let's start off by looking at the big traditional banks. And in Brazil, the top 5 banks in terms of size are Itaú, Banco do Brasil, Bradesco, Caixa Econômica Federal, and Santander. And these banks have lots of agencies in all parts of Brazil, but there are some differences between them. So Banco do Brasil and Caixa Econômica Federal, they're government banks. So the government has a controlling stake in them. And there are some advantages with having an account with these two banks. So they offer a lot of competitive mortgages to house buyers, a lot of loans as well to businesses and farmers. So a lot of people have accounts with these banks because of this. And also theoretically, your money should be pretty safe with them as well, because they're connected to the government. But these days, there are more and more questions about how financially stable governments are around the world, so I'm not sure if that still applies. And then they offer lots of investment options, shares, funds, corporate public bonds, savings account, and then insurance and all of that. So that's all pretty good. But there are also some challenges with opening a bank account with these two banks. So when I opened accounts with them, the process was not that smooth. It took a long time, a lot of effort, lots of documentation. I mean, maybe it was because I'm a foreigner and I'd recently arrived in the country. But yeah, it was a bit of a challenge. Also, the other thing is, how do I say this politely? They're not the most focused on innovation and technology. So their mobile or cell phone apps can sometimes kind of freeze on you a bit or give you error messages. And also, finally, Brazilian banks, not just these two, but in general, they love to charge a monthly fee for you having a bank account with them. And these fees can range from 30 reais to over 100 reais. So like $5 to up to $20 a month. And this applies to Banco do Brasil and Caixa as well. And now it is possible to open a very simple bank account with just the bare minimum, and then you don't have a monthly fee. But if you want a credit card and you want to make quite a few transfers per month and so on, then the chances are that you're going to have to pay a fee. But there's one other way of avoiding those fees, and that's if you're wealthy and you deposit in Banco do Brasil, it's 150,000 reais, which is $27,000. Then they remove the monthly fee. And then if we look at the other 3 big ones, Itaú, Bradesco, and Santander. So with these, I found opening bank accounts with them a bit easier than Banco do Brasil and Caixa. And also their apps and website work a bit better. There's still now and again where things just freeze on you or just don't work. I don't know why, but usually the problems occur Monday morning. I'm not sure why that is. But yeah, that seems to be the time when I experience problems with these banks. But things are a bit better with these. And then these 3 banks also offer lots of investment options, insurance, pensions, and many other things. But again, they like to charge a monthly fee for you having a bank account with them. But again, it's possible if you go for a really simple one that you don't have to pay, or if you're wealthy and you invest a fair bit of money with them, then again, you don't have to pay the fee. Now, there's a government website which shows you a summary of the number of complaints against these banks. If you look at that, of the top 5 banks, the one that has the most complaints apparently is Bradesco. They've got Itaú at 7th place, and then Santander at 10th place, and then you actually have Caixa and Banco do Brasil below that. So it seems like the 3 private banks have more complaints than the 2 government banks. But for me, my personal experience was the opposite. I had more problems with Banco do Brasil and Caixa than with the other banks. But then there's also another website called Reclama Aqui. So they also summarize the amount of complaints against the banks. So what this does, it gives you a score overall in terms of how satisfied people are with the banks. So here you can see Santander got a pretty low score at 6.1. Banco Brasil got a pretty good score at 8. Then you've got Itaú, and that's pretty good at 7.5. Bradesco 7. And Caixa Econômica Federal 6.7. So this gives a bit of a different picture to the government website that I showed you earlier. And what I would say is that in my personal opinion, I had the least issues with Itaú in terms of setting up account and using their website and app and stuff compared to the other top 5. But I'm sure many other people watching this are going to disagree with me, and they would have had a totally different experience with these banks. So then if we look at the banks below the top 5, so then you have BTG Pactual. So that's more of an investment bank. They offer kind of current accounts and stuff as well, but they have no agencies, so it's all online. Then you have Safra, and that's a bank kind of focused more on the high net worth individual. Then you have Sicredi and Sicobi, and they are cooperative banks. So the customers of the banks are actually part owners of the business, and they also have lots of agencies around Brazil. And then finally you have Citibank, but they sold most of their banking business to Itaú a couple of years ago. So actually they're just focused on businesses and again high net worth individuals. So then let's have a look at the online Brazilian banks. So here in Brazil there are lots of these online banks, and the biggest of these is Nubank. So this was set up in 2013, so it hasn't been trading for that long, about 15 years. And Warren Buffett from Berkshire Hathaway actually invested in this bank, and it's grown a lot and very quickly. And actually, if you look at the number of clients, Nubank has over 100 million clients now, so it's actually ranked at number 3 in terms of number of clients. The ranking we looked at earlier was based on finances. And I like this bank. Their app is really easy to use. Opening up a bank account was super quick. And they don't charge a monthly fee for your bank account or a credit card. I mean, if you want a more advanced credit card and so on, then they charge a fee. But if you just want a normal bank account and credit card, there's no monthly fee, which is really good. However, they do charge for cash withdrawals, which is 6 reais per withdrawal, which is $1.10. But that's not a big issue because, I mean, I never withdraw cash anymore. And if you do need to, then if you have a bank account with one of the other big banks, then you just, use them instead. So overall, I haven't had any issues with Nubank. It's been pretty smooth. And then you have lots of other online banks. So you have Banco Inter, C6 Bank, PicPay, PagSeguro, Mercado Pago, Neon, Banco Rendimento, and many others. So these banks are smaller than Nubank. And again, most of them don't charge monthly fees for having a bank account with them. Some charge for withdrawals, others don't. But these banks are a bit smaller and newer, and so you've got this question mark of, how safe is your money with them. So then if we look at complaints against the online banks, so let's first have a look at the government website. So here you can see that the number 1 bank with the most complaints is Inter, Banco Inter. Then at number 3 is Mercado Pago. Then you have Banco C6, PagSeguro, PicPay, Neon, Pagamentos, and so Nubank is down at number 15. And my personal experience is, I would agree with that, in terms of not having many issues with Nubank. But you can see with the other ones like Inter and Banco C6 and so on, they've had quite a few complaints. But if we look at Reclame Aqui, it's a completely different picture. So Inter, which was at number 1, it's got quite a good reputation on Reclame Aqui. Nubank has got a very good reputation, 8.6. I think that's the highest of all the banks. Oh no, PicPay got even higher at 8.7. So again, this website kind of contradicts the other website that I showed you. But there are some consistencies between the two, and that is that Nubank has got a good score on both of them. But there is one final group of banks or financial companies, because I don't think they are actually banks, and that is Wise and Revolut. And so both of these are now operating in Brazil, and so you can have a Brazilian bank account with these two, which is in the Brazilian currency, the Brazilian real. But these two bank accounts are a bit more limited. I mean, they're adding more features all the time, but you can do, transfers, and they've got some simple savings accounts and so on. So that's another option. And again, they don't charge for you to set up an account with them. And what I would say is that if you're someone who travels or you're a foreigner moving to Brazil, in my opinion, it's worth setting up an account with these two, because when you come to transferring money and so on, these can be cheaper than using other banks. Okay, so that's a quick rundown of a lot of the banks in Brazil. Obviously, I didn't mention all of them. And in terms of my personal favorites, like I said before, in terms of the big traditional banks, I've had the least issues with Itaú. In terms of the online banks, I really like Nubank, and then also Wise and Revolut. Now, the second thing I want to talk about is foreigners opening up bank accounts here in Brazil. So in general, this process is not simple, but that's the case in a lot of countries as well. I know that in Sweden and the UK as well, it can be a nightmare to set up a bank account if you're a foreigner. So yeah, it's a bit of a challenge in Brazil as well. And so what you need to do to open an account with most banks is that, first of all, you need a CPF number, which is a tax ID. Now that isn't too difficult to get. So what you need to do, if you're already in Brazil, what you need to do is you can go onto this website here, fill out a form, and then you send an email attaching this form and a couple other documents to the Brazilian tax authority. Now you can do that if you're physically in Brazil. If you're not in Brazil, then you need to go to a Brazilian consulate, or obviously you can use a lawyer who can do it for you. So the CPF number isn't too difficult to get, and what I would say is that if you're planning to go to Brazil, get a CPF number, because it's just going to make your life so much easier, because you'll need it for most things. In order to get a mobile chip or a cell phone chip, to buy things online and various other things, you'll need a CPF number. So that should definitely be one of the first things you do, even if you're not planning to open a bank account. And then in terms of other documents the banks will ask you, so they'll ask for a proof of address, so water, electricity statement or something. And then proof of income as well. And with most of them, especially online banks, you'll need a Brazilian mobile cell phone number as well. And then comes the key one, and that is they'll request your Brazilian ID. So you'll need a Brazilian visa in order to get the Brazilian ID, and the banks will request this. So if you don't have a Brazilian visa and a Brazilian ID, then it'll be very difficult to open bank accounts with the big banks or with the online banks. Now I know some people have said they found glitches with some of the smaller online banks where they're not requesting a copy of your ID, but I think most of the banks now have changed that. However, there is still a way of getting a Brazilian bank account without having a visa and Brazilian ID, and that is opening a CDE bank account. And that's called Conta de Domiciliado no Exterior. So that translates as an account for those who are domiciled abroad. Now, not all banks offer this, but some do. And the documents you need to provide in order to open one of these bank accounts is, again, CPF, which isn't too difficult to get, copy of your passport, proof of address abroad, and maybe proof of income abroad as well. And so these bank accounts have been created to allow foreigners who aren't living in Brazil to invest in Brazil, so buy a property or something. And what I would say is that sometimes the banks can complicate things. I don't know, sometimes I get the impression that the banks aren't too interested in opening these bank accounts for foreigners because it's a lot of hassle for them or something, I don't know. So I know of some foreigners who have tried to open these bank accounts with some banks, and it just takes a long time, and in the end they kind of just reject the application. But I do know that quite a few people have managed to do it with an online bank called Banco Rendimento. So they offer CDE accounts, and I know quite a few people have managed to get these CDE bank accounts with that bank. But there are others as well. And in terms of transferring money overseas to Brazil, the two services I use are Wise and Revolut, because these fees in general are lower than the big Brazilian banks. What you can do with these two companies is that you set up a dollar, euro, or sterling bank account with them, and then also a Brazilian real bank account as well. So you just transfer dollars, euro, sterling to them, and then convert into Brazilian reais, and then you use the debit card that they provide you with, and then you just spend your Brazilian reais in Brazil. Now there is a limit on how much you can transfer if you use that method. The other way is that you transfer dollars, euro, sterling to Wise or Revolut, and then you transfer to your Brazilian bank account with one of the Brazilian banks. So again, that's pretty simple, and the fees are relatively low. It is important to know that you need to transfer money from your bank account overseas to your bank account in Brazil. Don't transfer money from your bank account overseas to someone else's bank account in Brazil, because that can have tax implications. Okay, so I hope you found that useful. Please leave a like, subscribe if you've got any questions or anything, leave in a commentary below. So thanks for watching, until next time.